So welcome back. Have a seat. You're still going through the list. I love it. What's your sun list? Number one is what? And you think of two is what? Two and shoes. It kind of rhymes, right? Two and shoes. Three is traffic light. What about four? Five? Six. So nice. Seven. Eight. Number 9. 10. 11. Just on this side. Number 12. 13. 14. 15. 16. 17. 18. 19. 20. How's your memory, everyone? All right, fantastic. Now, by the way, these are fun kind of brain games. Somebody at the break talked about age. How do you keep your brain ageless through time? And I think one of the things is just practice. You got to use it or what? Use it or lose it. And when it comes to your brain, they say about 1/3 of it is predetermined. Genetics, it's biology, but 2/3 of it is completely in your control. How exciting is that? Right? It's your diet, it's your stress management, it's how much sleep you're getting, it's your exercise, it's your supplements, it's your brain training, it's your learnings, it's your new learnings, right? And so while we grow older, in a lot of ways, we could actually grow better also. How exciting is that? Is that exciting? Because actually, there was a cover of Time magazine talked about that they did this study on super nuns. And they wanted to find out, you could Google super nuns, and these women were living to their 70s, 80s, 90, 100, and above. How awesome is that? And they wanted to find out how these women were living so much longer, and they found out half of it had to do with their faith, their gratitude, and the other half had to do with how mentally active they were their entire life. I mean, they were really lifelong learners. In the truest sense. I mean, they were having deep conversations, they were reading all the time, they were doing puzzles, they were having, playing cards, they were doing all these different things to keep themselves active, because we find that the two biggest declines sometimes with people's mental agility and their performance happens when they graduate school, interesting, and when they retire. Because sometimes when people retire out of their career, what do they also do? They retire out of this, right? And then what else do they later on? Not so far after that, if you retire this, what happens? So this is intimately connected with all of this. And so there was a study done, it's called Aging with Grace, and that was the name of the book. So you could check that out, Aging with Grace. And it talks about that whole study about the connection between mental activity and your own longevity. So, and the new science also is really exciting. They've found out more about your brain in the past 10 years, probably than in the previous 1,000 years. And that's really exciting. Terms like neurogenesis and neuroplasticity, you're going to start hearing that more and more in the news and in periodicals, neurogenesis, neuroplasticity. What does neurogenesis mean? You're generating new neurons. What's a neuron? It's a nerve cell. It's like your brain cells. It's like you have 100 billion brain cells, these neurons in there, and neurogenesis is saying you can create new brain cells later in life. Is that exciting or is that exciting? Neuroplasticity is another buzzword. What does that mean? The ability to change these patterns and make new connections. See, all learning is, and we're going to talk about in this session, is making new connections. It's making new connections. It's associating something you don't know to something you already know. And that's what I think a lot of learning is, associating something you don't yet know and connecting it to something you do know. It's like math, right? It's like you learn math, but if you miss, like, let's say you're out of school for a couple of weeks because you're sick, you come back, it's hard to catch up because you're not making those connections to things that you know. People are making connections to things that you don't have connections to, for example. And so neuroplasticity is saying your brain is like plastic. It's obviously not, but it could create new brain connections, and that means new learnings. And that's really exciting. They're saying Einstein's brain didn't necessarily weigh any more than anybody else's. If anything, some people say it weighed actually less, but he had certain areas of his brain were highly connected because he would do these thought experiments with himself, and I'll talk about that a little bit. These thought experiments where, he would visualize himself maybe sitting in class, maybe he's bored, he would look at a clock, and he would visualize himself riding on a beam of light towards that clock. and then what would the clock look like? And then, so, in terms of relativity. And then luckily, he had the left brain also, because that's all right brain, imagination, visualization, creation. Luckily, he had the left brain, math and a little bit of, science to be able to put that to formulas and such. But he was able to, by doing that, make all these new connections inside of his brain. And to the degree you can make those connections, like one connection could be like a thread, two connections could be a couple, three, four, then you have a string, then you have like a wire. And then you're hardwired, this stuff, whether it's a skill in your body, whether you want to play tennis or learn a foreign language. And so neuroplasticity is very important, and that's why new learnings is so important. And that's why I salute all of you for being here, because it's tough to sometimes challenge yourself and get out of your old learnings, right? And so that's what we're doing here today. So even these exercises that we do with the sunless, for example, it's just getting you to do new things in a different way, all right? So let's get started with this. All right, just to review, we talked about success. 80% of success is just showing up. We talked about we're in the millennium of the mind, the age of the brain, if you will. And the faster you can learn, the faster you will definitely earn. Your mind, your brain is the fastest, most powerful computer in the universe. It is your doorway for everything. Is your brain intimately connected to your job, to your relationships, to your health? Is there anything it's not connected to? So this is the control panel for everything. And so what we're going to do is a big upgrade and also give you an owner's manual on how to be able to use it, if you will. Because it's interesting, right? You buy a new device, whether it's a microwave or it's a Blu-ray player, it always comes with an instruction manual. Your brain doesn't come with that. And it is like the most powerful computer. And so we talked about the difference between what to learn and also how to learn, and the difference between working hard and working smart, about sharpening the saw, if you will, and that there's no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's just a trained memory and a what? Untrained memory, all right? So it's not that you have a bad memory, it's just maybe you need training in that specific area. But your mind, your brain is like a muscle. It's use it or what? Use it or lose it. And your brain can grow older. In some ways, it can grow better. We talk about neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, and what you're practicing in private. Right now, you're in private, right? What you're practicing here, you're rewarded for outside, right? And what my goal for you is, when you leave here, to have a trained brain, to be able to have the tools to be able to go forward, to be able to read faster. By the way, the average person reads about 200 words per minute. At 400 words a minute, that puts you in less than 1% of the population in the US. Is that a big difference or not? That's huge, okay? So I'm excited about that. So practice makes progress. It doesn't make perfect. We talked about the sunless, which everyone here is a superhero about, and we talked about basic association. So now I'm going to give you 10 new words. Where basic association, that was not a random list, obviously. Now I'm really going to give you 10 random words. And you're going to do the best you can to memorize this list. No typing or pens. That would be a little bit easier if you're writing it down. Put it down. All right, 10 words. You ready? Oh, you're going to fall with this energy. You ready? Yes. All right. How's your memory? Super. Fantastic. All right, 10 words. No numbers. I'll just put them out there. Water bottle. Blimp. Batteries. Barrel. Boar. Diamond. Knight Rider. Ox. How are we doing so far? Good? Toothpaste and neon lights. That's 10. How do we do with that? You're thinking, like, stop talking so I can write them down. Take out a piece of paper and just write down those 10 words. In order. Okay, how we do? I'm getting a little mixed reaction here. All right. What was the first one? After water bottle? After blimp? After batteries? After barrel? Bore. After bore? After diamond? Knight Rider, good. After Knight Rider? After ox? And after toothpaste? Neon lights, very good. All right, see how you did? Okay, I need a volunteer, please. Who has good handwriting? Please. What's your name? Renee. Let's give a hand to Renee. Where are you from, Renee?
I'm from Medina, which is
Medina.
Buffalo and Rochester, New York.
Buffalo and Rochester. Very nice. Thanks for coming in. What we're going to do now is this. Is Renee's going to help us with her awesome handwriting because I don't have very good handwriting. You can grab a marker. And what we're going to do is, what I'd like to do is you're going to teach me. You're going to teach us. Now you are the memory expert. I'm not. You are, right? And so you're going to, the things that you remembered, I want you to teach me why you remembered those. Because I could tell you that it wasn't by accident. That success, as they say, leaves clues, and that there's reasons why you remember certain things and reasons why you forget. So name a word that you remembered and tell me why. And we could call these principles of recall. Just principles of recall. Yes? Okay. Blimp because it's shaped like a water bottle, because there was some kind of association that was there. So one of what we could do is maybe, yeah, that's a association. Wow, you're really good. Let's do this. Maybe we just put the principles on and not, we'll just put the association, and then we could, the blimp in the water, 'cause we'll just put the principles itself. So association is important. What else? What other words did you remember? Knight Rider. Why do you think so? You don't have to. It's a TV program. Why do you think you remember Knight Rider? How many people remember Knight Rider? Why do you think so? It's unusual. So the association would be it's unusual. Do you remember things that are unusual? Like if I give you a list of 20 vegetables and all of a sudden there's one, I put Lady Gaga. Would Lady Gaga stand out a little bit, right? Because it's unusual. What other ones did you remember? Battery, barrel, bore. And maybe you don't have to spell it all out, but why do you think you remember that? Okay, so it's organized, right? So it's organized or it's chunk. So that would be an association. It would be organization. So the principle would be organization. That information, once it's organized, does it help you to remember it? Yes or yes? So if I gave you a list of 20 words, most people remember 5, 6, 7 of them. But if I tell you beforehand, they're going to fall in these 4 categories. They're going to be vegetables, state capitals, presidents, and famous movies. Are you going to remember more? Yes, because there's organized, right? It's chunked. What other words did you remember? Yes? Boars? You like pigs, right? Yeah, so boar, so you can remember boar because there's emotion there. So that's another, do you remember things that are highly emotional? Yes or yes? So that's another principle is emotion. What else? Toothpaste, what else? Why? Okay, so toothpaste, maybe it was visual because she said that she could, see it. So do you remember things that you could see better than things that sometimes you hear? How many people are better with faces than they are with names? Right? So it's visual. Also, it's familiar, right? How many people brush your teeth today? Raise your hands. Really high. Look around the room. Did anyone not brush their teeth today? So it's familiar, so familiarity is a principle of memory, right? Would you remember someone's name if they had a familiar name to like a family member? Because it's familiar, so that's a principle to your memory. Yes? The alliteration, yeah, we were talking about this. So it's organized, right? So it's chunked and it's the same. That helps you to remember it, right? What else? What other words did you remember on that list? Look at that list right there. What other words did you remember the first time? Diamond. Why? Diamonds are forever. That's good marketing. Why do you think you'd remember diamond? Right? Because it's unusual, or some people remember diamond because there's emotion tied to it, right? What else? What other words on that list did you remember? Did anyone remember water bottle? Raise your hand if you remembered it. It was on your list. Why? First. Okay, so water bottle, it's first. So you remember things that are first on a list or last, right? So how many people remember neon lights? And that's probably why. So a principle of recall is first and last. The technical name for it is primacy and recency. Primacy and recency. So primacy means you remember something prime right up front, right? Recency means you remember something at the end. So let's say I give you a list of 20 words. You're more likely to remember the first words and the last words because they're most recent. If you go to an event, let's say you meet 20 strangers, you're more likely to remember the people's names of the very first people you met and the last people you met, everything else being the same. But there will be spikes of your memory when somebody's unusual at that party, they'll stand out. Somebody who's very familiar, they'll stand out, right? Somebody that you have emotions toward, good or bad, they'll stand out and you'll remember them. By the way, just so you know, studying, the reason why we take so many breaks, we were talking about preparing for tests and such like that, going back and getting exams. A lot of people in college, they don't really study. What do? They cram, right? They don't study for 5 weeks. All of a sudden, the night before, they study for like 5 hours. The next morning, remember this? If this is you, nobody could talk to you in the next morning because, at breakfast, because you don't want anything to spill out by accident. And then when it finally does spill out on the test, what happens? It's gone. So there's a difference between cramming to forget and really studying to remember, and that's what we're going to talk about in the reading part, all right? But the reason why we take these breaks is because if you study 8 hours straight without a break, what happens is your retention will be very high at these points, and it'll be like this in the middle. You lose all of that retention. The reason you take breaks, let's say this is an 8-hour block, like this, then all of a sudden you have more primacies and recencies, and you pick up all this information. So I don't break because I don't have more stuff I want to teach. I break because I create more primacies and more recencies. Plus, it's during these breaks that you consolidate the information, just like when you sleep. Like how do you build a muscle? It's not just working out. You build a muscle. When you work out, you tear down a muscle. When you rest is when you build it back up, a lot with your learning, like sleep. Very important, sleep. Anything else? Did we cover everything? Yeah, it would fall under emotion. It would fall under familiarity. But this is a great start. So thank you, Renee. Let's give a hand to Renee. So here, what you're telling me is what we're talking about here is instead of me just saying, hey, here are the memory techniques, these are the principles that make your memory work. What I'm hallucinating is the words that you didn't remember, you probably weren't applying these things. It probably didn't have visualization. It probably wasn't familiar to you. You probably weren't associating it to something. Does that make sense? All right, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to take these things that you told us helps you to remember, and we're going to apply it into a technique. So you taught us, these are the different things, right? It's always the same thing. It's organized, it's outstanding, it's unusual. Sometimes they had action in there. You're squirting out the toothpaste like you talked about. There's action, right? Because you remember things that have action. There's familiarity, there was an association, but these are the real principles that make your memory work. The things that you're not remembering, think about the things you're not remembering. Where you put your car keys, that person's name, who was in that film, all those things probably don't have these elements, all right? So I'm going to show you how to take these elements and apply them towards the things you want to remember. Now, so the next tool I'm going to teach you is called chain linking. And now this is foundational if you've gone through our programs. I'm going to get to some other different examples, but the reason I do this is because it's like the hammer, the nail, the saw, the screwdriver. These are your basics, right? These are the things that people who want to go to mastery really are excited about. Right? Like if people do a martial arts, some people don't want to do the katas and the basics, but that's where the juice is, right? So here, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to do this quick exercise, and I'm going to show you a process called chain linking. I just want you to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and this is for those of you who say that I don't have an imagination or I don't visualize really well. This is what's going to help with that, is practice. And even if it's uncomfortable, honestly, I'm a little glad, because if everything is completely comfortable for you, are you learning anything? No, so you learn by stretching yourself. If you're working out, like we talked about, and you're lifting a weight and you're doing curls, do you get the benefit from the first few curls or the last few curls? The last, and that's where you stretch. So do I have your permission to stretch you? Yes or yes? All right, so I want to be a good coach for you. So close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just breathe normally. And I just want you to imagine, we're going to do an exercise where I want you to visualize this list. I want to help you to memorize these 10 things faster and more enjoyable. And even if you've done this before, enrich it. Make it even more vivid, because this is a practice in imagination. And the practice is where the power comes from. So take a deep breath. I want you to imagine a water bottle. All right, just imagine the water bottle. See and feel it. Imagine it's right there on the table. Maybe make it bigger and brighter. Notice the brand. Say out loud what brand it is. Oh, that's a good branding question. And I want you to imagine it. I want you to imagine tied to it is a gigantic blimp. Like, why would that happen, right? If it makes you smile or laugh, that's why you remember it, right? Remember who are the fastest learners? Children. They do this all the time. Tied to it is a gigantic blimp, and notice it's pulling the water bottle up in the air. Look at the blimp. Even if you can't see it, just imagine it's there. Feel it, get a sense for it. You are the director of your own mind. It's pulling the water bottle up in the air, and I want you to imagine out of nowhere, a barrage of batteries come, and it pops the blimp. You see hundreds and hundreds of batteries fly through the air, and it pops the blimp. Like, imagine that's happening now. Einstein said, imagination is more powerful than knowledge. This is your right brain we're activating before the speed reading. Notice the batteries. What kind of batteries? AA, AAA, D batteries, C. What brand of batteries? Say it out loud. What brand of batteries? That is such a branding question. And the batteries come from this gigantic wooden barrel. A gigantic wooden barrel. See the barrel? See the size? See the color? The shape? What is it made of? How big is it? All coming out of the batteries, coming out of the barrel. And you're like, who's throwing those batteries? Right out of nowhere, the barrel breaks open, and this wild boar comes out. You see the wild boar, you see the color, the shape, its facial expressions. And you look closely, and inside the boar's mouth is a diamond. Not even a 1 or 2 carat diamond. It's a 68 carat diamond inside the boar's mouth. And you just watch this. It's like, you don't see this very often. It's very unusual. And it's running. It drops the diamond. And who picks it up but Knight Rider? Knight Rider. So you see this black car. Now for you, like, Knight Rider geeks, we know Knight Rider's not the car. The car's name is Kit. But let's say Knight Rider reaches out, he grabs the diamond, and then Knight Rider, this black sports car, it parallel parks right behind an ox. Big, smelly ox. What does that smell like? Imagine. Your mind doesn't know the difference between something you vividly imagine, something that's real. Ever have a dream? You wake up in a sweat, or laughing, or you feel it. Smelly ox, and you go to brush the ox's teeth with toothpaste. Toothpaste. You're brushing it. See yourself squirting the toothpaste out? What brand of toothpaste? Interesting. And then after you're done with the toothpaste, you throw it out into this big neon lights. Big neon lights. The word says super, and there's a big explosion. Toothpaste everywhere, all over the neon lights. Now, with your eyes closed, I want you to walk through these 10 things, starting with water bottle. Now, if you go all the way to the end, try doing it backwards. Neon sign. Speed up. You could do amazing things in your imagination. Didn't you? All right, open your eyes. Show me. What was the first word? After water bottle? After blimp? After batteries? Barrel. After barrel? Bore. After bore? After diamond. After Knight Rider? After ox? After toothpaste? Wow. Can you go backwards? How's your memory, everyone? So this is called chain linking, okay? And now chain linking is saying that your memories are like links of a chain. If I say dog, you say. I say cat, you say. Mouse. I say mouse, you say. Cheese. I say cheese, you say. Swiss. I say Swiss, you say. Alps, whatever, right? I say Alps, you say. But you see how all your memories are like links of a chain? That's saying that if that happens naturally, then why don't you do it intentionally for things you want to remember? And so what we're doing is we're associating one thing to another. And that's all learning is, right? There's always two things. It's always, there's a word and there's its definition, right? There's a state and there's its capital. There's a face and there's their name. There's always a link being made between two things because that's all learning is. There's always two things. It's connecting something you know to something you want to know. And so what glues those two things together, I call it the vowel technique. And what are the vowels? A, E, I, O, U. So here's the glue. You're making one thing into a picture, you're making the other thing into a picture, and you're gluing the picture together. Now notice we didn't just take a barrel and put next to it some batteries, right? Because that's not very memorable, correct? So what the glue does, it's saying A, E, I, O, U. The A is we used action. Right? Was there action involved in the story? And it takes more time to explain than it actually takes to do, but there was like a barrage of batteries hitting the blimp. There's lots of action. Then there was also exaggeration. How big was the blimp? How many batteries? Right? You exaggerate things in your mind, it makes it more memorable. It also had some emotion. Two questions I ask all the time when I want to remember something is, what do I see and how does it make me feel? I ask that all the time. If you want to know the patterns of power, like if you want to know the pathways of power, if you will, I'm always looking for those clues. When I'm with somebody, I'm looking for those pops, if you will. I talk about mom, I also talk about pop. So I'm talking about these patterns of power. I'm always looking for those patterns. So I want to know, for a good memory person, they're always asking, what can I see? How does it make me feel? Because most of the things that you want to learn, you hear about, right? They're a conversation, a name, or some facts or whatever. So your auditory sense is taken care of, but what do you see and what does it make you feel, right? How many people, have you ever really been interested in a subject, but let's say you're going to get education on it, but for some reason you're just not enjoying it or getting it as you usually do? And usually it's because of the instructor, and it's not a good or bad instructor, it's just maybe the teaching style is different than your learning style. So it's kind of like two ships in the night, you're just not getting it. Like for example, on your piece of paper, write your name, first and last. First and last name. And I love taking notes, writing, because I think it's just becoming a kind of a lost art. But then now I want you to do is switch hands, and with the opposite hand underneath it, write your first and last name. Okay. Whoa, how many people are still writing? Now show your neighbor. Show your neighbors, people on your left and right. Okay. Now, which one's better quality? First or second? First. Which one was faster? Which one was more comfortable? Now, it's interesting that the second one, according to you, the quality's not as good. It felt less comfortable, right? And it took longer. And sometimes that's how people learn, right? It's like it takes longer, it feels uncomfortable, the quality or the fidelity is not quite as good, but maybe you're learning with the opposite hand. Does that make sense? And so we all have a preferred way of learning. One of the frameworks people use is through our senses, because information comes in, it has to come through our senses. So some people like to learn visually, right? How many people love learning by looking or by reading? They want you to someone to show them. How many other people are more auditory, meaning the best way you like to learn something is through, you want to hear about it. You want someone to talk to you about it. You want to discuss it. That's auditory, right? And then how many other people, it's nice to see it and it's nice to hear about it, but really for you, you have to roll up your sleeves and do it. It's different, right? So that's your visual, auditory, and your kinesthetic way of learning. And everybody is different. Now, we're not just one, right? We're all three of those because we have these senses. But some of us, most of us have a preference for one. And sometimes when the way the teacher teaches is different than the way you prefer to learn, that's why you don't have your learning. But going back to what do I see and how does it make me feel? I want to see something visually, not just hear it, but I also want to feel it. So when somebody is talking to me and teaching me something, I also want to say, well, what do I see, and what do I feel, all right? Because I know emotions tied to information becomes knowledge and long-term information. So that's the emotion. The I stands for something interesting or illogical, right? When we're making these chain links, this story method, if you will, what I'm thinking about is how do I make it interesting? Because you don't remember things that are boring, right? And so what really, for me, quick recall is about, or quick learning is about taking the ordinary and making it extraordinary. Because a name, a password, a book even, you don't have a lot of say in terms of the content itself, objectively, but how you represent it inside your own mind, you have total control, right? So you're taking ordinary information like a name or a word or a language or a face, and you're making it extraordinary inside your mind's eye. And I really think that this is a lost art. In fact, you go back hundreds or thousands of years, people's memories were extraordinary because there was an art to memory. Nowadays, now with technology, if we have teleprompters and with the written word and we have printing presses and computers, before they would have to pass down generations of stories around campfires, right? These amazing orators, these Greek orators and poets would get in front of rooms, but they didn't have all this stuff written down. It was very expensive, paper and such, so they would have to use their memory to be able to do it. And so I want to kind of bring that back so that way our lives could also be enriched also. But we make things illogical. Makes no sense for like a smelly, ox to be a parallel park with Knight Rider, all that stuff. That's why you remember it. And then finally, the O and the U stands for outstanding and organized. Remember we talked about by organizing it, making outstanding. And then the U is unusual, or another word for that is unique. And those are the vowels that I use, because a vowel in a word, like all words have vowels, and the vowels kind of glue that word together. And so I'm thinking about my memories. How do I add the vowels in there? How do I add action, exaggeration, making it illogical? How do I make it outstanding? How do I make it a little bit unusual? So it makes it interesting to me. Because you're busy, right? There's information flying you at every directions. The only things that you're going to really retain, much less apply, are the things that interest you. And you might not have a general interest to what somebody is saying, but you could sit here and be like, wow, that is so fascinating how boring that person is. Do you know what I mean? And you can start making it actually interesting in your own mind and entertaining yourself, because that's your responsibility. But if you put it on an outside force, then you lose that power. Going back to with great responsibility comes great power. All right, so we did this. And so this is the opposite of rote learning. So what you're going to notice is there's this old school of memory, for example, where it's based on rote. What's rote mean? Just repetition, right? So if someone wants to remember something, they would go through, hydrogen, helium, lithium. They would repeat it. Glucose, C6H12. They would start repeating it. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua. They would just repeat stuff over and over again. Your brain goes, okay, that must be important after I heard it 50 times. That's rote. Rote is like a wheel, right? Rote, like Rotary Club. For those of you members of your Rotary Club in your community, it's a wheel. What's the wheel? It's the teacher saying something like, George Washington, John Adams, like that. And then it's the students repeating it. So I say George Washington, you say what? And that's the second half of the wheel. And I say George Washington, you say what? And you just keep on going it. Okay, that's the first president. Then you do the second president, the third president. The problem is all the repetition takes what? Time. And that's what we don't have. That's the one thing we don't have in today's age. So instead of frequency or duration, like in physics, you have like in marketing, let's say, you could market your product through frequency, lots of ads. You could do it through duration, really long ads. Or what I like is intensity, meaning just like one ad real quick, just gets your attention. And I focus on intensity of memory, because if you make things action, exaggeration, emotion, you feel it, you just have to see it once and you have it. And that saves all the what? Time, right? Same thing with working out. Frequency, you could work out a lot. Duration, you could work out like for a long time and be at the gym for 6 hours. Intensity, stack it on, right? You could do it in 5 or 10 minutes if you do it intense enough, right? And so memory is much the same way. So this is the opposite of rote learning. And so let's apply chain linking. What class, because we're all in different industries, as we're finding out from people sharing, going back to school, what class was very technical? What's some subjects you needed to memorize? History, science, a lot of science. A lot of science, biology. What sciences? Chemistry? What would you have to memorize in chemistry? Formulas, that periodic table thing, let's do that. Periodic table, right? It always comes up every single time. And the reason I want to use this as an example is that if you can memorize the periodic table, how many people are so fascinated with the periodic table? Right? So it has 0 interest level, right? On a scale of 0 to 10, 0, right? How technical is it compared to most things you have to memorize, 0 to 10? It's pretty technical, right? And then also, though, how relevant is it to your life? 0 to 10. Well, just so you know, it's a 10. Like these elements are very relevant to you. But maybe knowing about it, oxygen and like that kind of stuff, very relevant. But knowing about it might not be so. So here's a subject that's highly technical, right? Highly irrelevant to most people's lives and has a 0 of an interest. If you can memorize that, could you pretty much memorize anything? Could you memorize something that's more relevant to you, less technical, more interesting? So that's pretty severe. So what we're going to do here is the first elements of the periodic table. By the way, what are they? What's the first element of the periodic table? I'll just write. The first element is what? Hydrogen. What else? What else? All right, somebody's gone through our training. What else? What's after lithium? Beryllium. What else? Now, I could be making things up, right, at this point. Zirconium. What's the last two? This is why I don't handwrite. And then neon. And actually, I want to do some more for people who have gone through our programs. Now, how would most people go about memorizing this in general, without this kind of training? Rote, right? You go hydrogen, helium, lithium, you just keep on repeating it. How long would it take approximately? 21 days, forever. And these are just the first 10 elements, right? Right, so the idea with chain linking, what chain linking is doing is saying you remember things best through images connected, right? And so you turn, the ultimate tip, TIP, is you turn into a picture. because you remember things that you see. In fact, more of your brain is dedicated towards visual processing than any other of the senses. Your visual cortex, if you will. That's why we tend to remember things that we see, like faces, and we forget things we hear, like names. All right, so what do you see? So the idea with turning into a picture, it's kind of like Pictionary. How many people have ever played Pictionary before? What is Pictionary? How do you play? You get in two teams, right? And you get a card, and the key is to get your team to say what's on the card without what? Without talking. And you could only do it through what? Pictures that you draw. A picture is worth what? And that's the key to speed reading. When we talk about speed reading later, I'm going to talk about reading in pictures instead of words, because a picture is worth 1,000 words, and that's a lot of comprehension. All right, so here, you turn it into a picture. So if I needed you to say hydrogen as an example, what could you be able to picture? So hydrogen, you need to either, what does it remind you of, or what does it sound like, right? Because remember, if you're playing Pictionary and you don't know what something is, then you say, we draw this, which is what? It's an ear, so it says sound like, because it reminds you. Because don't you remember things that's just, you don't remember the person's name, but how many people start going through the alphabet? Does it start with an A? Does it start with a B? Does it start with a C? And you start going, and you get really nervous when you get to like W, because there are not many names that are left. But sometimes does it work? Yes, right? That one letter could remind you of. So what could remind you of this? What could remind you of hydrogen? Hydro dam? Well, what's hydrogen used for? Some things that are memorable. Water, good. What else? Balloons, what else? Blimps, what else? Bombs, okay. Okay, so wow, that's a lot of B's. Let's choose one of those B's. Let's take a blimp, all right? Can you all picture a blimp? Very good. Now helium, no, sorry. No, so hydrogen, sorry. Hydro, let's go, helium is used for blimp, right? You don't want to use hydrogen for a blimp, right? All right. So here, let's go back to hydrogen. Let's use a water bottle, right? Simply say water bottle, and then this would be a blimp. Fair? Okay, so then the technique would be turn this into a picture, and use action, exaggeration, the vowels to link it. So what could you picture here with a water bottle and a blimp? Can you imagine a water bottle being carried up to the sky by a blimp? Can you imagine what kind of water bottle it is, what brand it is? Okay, good. Now, lithium, what can you picture for lithium? Batteries, right? Lithium is used for batteries. So how do you associate batteries to this blimp? So maybe like lots of different batteries popping the blimp. Who can see that? Can you see like lots of batteries popping a blimp? Yes or yes? Good. Now, how would you picture this though? Beryllium. What could you picture that would remind you of beryllium? Because I don't know personally what beryllium does. I don't know if it's like creates like superpowers and stuff like that. But what does it sound like? Like if you didn't know what it was, could someone say, hey, it sounds like beryl? You would remind you. You wouldn't think like, oh, it's carbon, right? You would think it's beryl. So how could you associate the batteries with the beryl? I like that. That's a good one. I like that. And then how would you picture like boron? What could you picture for boron? Like a big wild boar, because we love boars, right? You do. Who loves boars in here? I think there are a number of boar fans here. So is this, so some people are laughing. Is this a random list? Have we done this before? Where? So this is a way of using chain linking to memorize highly technical information that's not relevant, that might not be of interest to you, is turn something into a picture, connect it to the next thing, and then go on. How many people see that? Yes or yes? Now, let's say that there are more elements. We have hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, and that's the list, right? So that's what we did. Water bottle, blimp, batteries, barrel, bore. How many people see that? How many people feel like this would have been useful back in school? Now, here are the next ones. So what I want you to do is get with a new partner, and I want you to continue the story. All right? Now, as an example, I'll get you jump-started. New partner, what could you picture for sodium? Interesting. What can you picture to remind you of magnesium? Milk and magnesia, what else? A magnet. Wouldn't that remind you? Very good. Aluminum. You see how this works, right? What about silicon? Silicon Valley? Some laughter over here. And so on. So get with your partner and just create the rest of the story, all right? Partner up, new partner. Give you a few minutes, go. Remember to use action, exaggeration, association, make it funny. Start wrapping it up. Okay, stop for a second. Raise your hand if you've completed this. Wow, almost half the room, fantastic. Remember, you're doing one at a time to a time like this, all right? How many people volunteer their story? Do this first, close your eyes, just close your eyes first. Just walk yourself, don't write it down, because sometimes when we write it, it becomes a handicap, and we figure it's like written down. I want to put it inside here. So just walk yourself through that story. Sodium, magnesium, helps to close your eyes to focus. Can you see it? Can you feel it? Smell or taste it? What do you hear? So we're creating this synesthesia, right? This blending of the senses. Wonderful. Okay, this table here. All right.
Okay.
Hey. All right, listen up. So what'd you come up with?
The ox was frightened by the explosion, so to calm him down, we gave him a salt lick, which was attached to a fence by a magnet, which was underneath an aluminum awning. Inside the place with an aluminum awning is a porcelain shop. Porcelain's a product of silicon. And there happened to be a celebrity inside, so there were flashing bulbs. But the paparazzi didn't take their Beano, so it smelled really bad. So we went to go for a swim in the pool.
Sulfur, chlorine, nice.
And there was a dragon in the pool, and he was on a floatable banana, which made us think of banana float, so we went to get ice cream.
All right, let's give her a hand. Another example over here. Maybe we could just pass the mic to this table next to you over here.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. So we had all this toothpaste all over the neon lights, so we used some salts to clean it off. And then because we had this neon light just floating out there, there was this big magnet that pulled it into a huge roll of aluminum foil, which was handy because with the new silicone breast implants, the woman didn't have a bra that was big enough, so this aluminum foil bra got made. And she wanted to eat shrimp cocktail in this, which had phosphorus, and it turned her into a mermaid. So she needed to be in water, so she went into the sulfur hot springs, but it was really smelly. And so we added some chlorine tablets, which allowed her to become, clean, like fresh out of a bath. So then she needed moisturizer, and she used argan oil, and she was ready to go for the day. So she had a banana for breakfast and washed it down with a glass of milk.
Nice. Round of applause. Anyone else? Over here? Oh, you're so good. Notice how many different examples are there? Your imagination, right?
All right. So I ingested too much salt and got an upset stomach. And so I needed to take milk of magnesia, which came wrapped in aluminum foil, which was shipped directly from Silicon Valley. In Silicon Valley, they have glow rings, which are yellow, and there's also a swimming pool where King Aragorn from
Oh,
Lord of the
wow.
Rings.
Lord of the Rings reference.
Yeah, it was swimming, and he came out and caught a possum
Ooh.
and milked it.
Round of applause. Thank you. So this is a way, this chain linking, and you see all these different examples, and thank you for those different images in my mind now that I'll forever remember. That's chain linking. And you could use this for so many different exercises, and it's a great practice. So not only is it a wonderful strategy to be able to help you to remember things, it's a wonderful brain exercise to really, how many people felt like when you're doing it again, you started having to tap into a deeper level of creativity, your imagination, and those are really important qualities or strengths for things like decision making or problem solving, be able to look at things in a different way, besides the very obvious effects of enhancing your memory, be able to visualize things. Does it help to be able to picture things inside your mind? That imagination that we're talking about, and I'll talk about in the next section when we talk about names, is an incredible superpower. The ability to close your eyes and be able to produce things inside your mind, and then that's what leaders do, right? They have these images inside their minds, and then they'll put it on the outside, right? They'll take the invisible and they'll make it what? Visible, right? So you'd have Walt Disney standing out in all these orange orchards, if you will, and looking out saying that's where, with his potential staff, and say that's where the Magic Kingdom is here. This is Foreverland, that's Tomorrowland, and so on. And then he actually wouldn't hire the people who couldn't see what he could see, because that imagination is so strong, right? So whether you look at a Walt Disney or you look at an Albert Einstein that did these thought experiments, and I'll talk about getting into an alpha and these different theta states that's important to be able to do this in. I'll mention it just now as just kind of a quick tip. You have, and this is not in the program, but just kind of a reference for yourself, there are 4 main brainwave states. They go beta, alpha, theta, delta. Beta, alpha, theta, delta. And so if you're hooked up to a brain device that's assessing the different brain waves that you're going through, you're cycling through these 4 throughout the day, hopefully, right? And so some research is saying that people have attention issues or what have you, or learning challenges, sometimes not spending enough time in certain areas. But basically, beta, you're most awake. Beta is when you're most awake. Delta, you're fast asleep. So that's the range, right? Now, in terms of where most people are right now, they're in beta state, right? Most awake, you're actively conscious and going. Delta is you're fast asleep. Alpha is the state where you're describe it like relaxed awareness. That's the state you go into where you become a sponge. And I like this state. This is the state where a lot of accelerated learning could happen, absorption could happen. There are whole language learning programs based on getting into an alpha state, because an alpha state is where information's going in and your conscious mind is kind of off to the side, and you're just absorbing it unconsciously. So for example, Things that put you in alpha state, meditation, deep conscious breathing, visualization could put you in alpha state. Certain music will put you into an alpha state. Now, hard rock will not put you into a relaxed state of awareness, but things like classical music, especially from the Baroque era, Vivaldi, Bach. So you'll have something like 60 beats per minute. And maybe you're harmonizing with that in your relaxed state of awareness. And that's where information is going in unfiltered. So it's a wonderful, like if you needed to improve your vocabulary or learn another language and that information's coming at you, let's say you had an audio recorder and it's being rehearsed, and you're listening to that music and you're doing those breathing and you're saying in that kind of cadence, then you're going to learn it more quickly than you would without it because you're in that alpha state. Because consciously, that beta state, you can only pay attention to how many things consciously? Yeah, they say now it's like 3 to 5. I mean, Harvard said it was 7 plus or minus 2, right? George Miller's study out of Harvard, 7 plus or minus 2, meaning 7 minus 2 is 5, 7 plus 2 is 9, 5 to 9 bits of information. I give you a list of 20 words, you're likely, without any kind of training, remember 5 to 9 of those words. Right? I say go buy these 20 things at the grocery store, you'll remember 5 to 9, because that's what your conscious mind could hold without any kind of strategies or scaffolding or heuristics to be able to do it. Now they're saying it's a lot less because of the world that we're in terms of our conscious mind is this everywhere. So alpha allows you to, you know what puts you in alpha state? Television. Have you ever seen somebody watching television, or maybe you are that person, and they're so in tune with the television, you could be having a conversation with that person, they don't hear you at all, because they're in a relaxed state of awareness, they're in a trance, and information's just going in. And that's one thing if they're watching PBS or Oprah or what have you, or they're watching Jerry Springer or whatever, right? So that information is going in unfiltered, so that's what you have to be careful of. That's the alpha state. Now below, so beta, alpha, delta is here. This one right between alpha and delta is something called theta. Theta is the state that you're in right before you go to sleep. And that's the state where alpha is a relaxed state of awareness where you're absorbing information. Theta state is a wonderful state where you're creating. That's the state. Have you ever noticed like when you're about to go to sleep or you just woke up and you're in that theta state, your imagination is just going, right? And that's actually the state Einstein would want to put himself in to do these thought experiments. He doesn't want to go to delta because he doesn't want to fall asleep because there's not a lot of learning going on while you sleep unless you're doing really cool like lucid dreaming work for those of you who do that, remember your dreams and you're wearing your dreams, really cool stuff. But if you're not doing that, then there's not a lot of learning going on. But the theta state is where you're creating. That's where creativity is. So Einstein, for example, would sit into a rocking chair. He would hold a rock or a ball, and he would rock himself almost to the point where he's sleeping, but he wouldn't want to fall asleep, and he holds the rock in his mind doing these thought experiments, all the imagination stuff that we're doing right here, because if he falls asleep, what will happen to the rock? And what will happen? He'll wake up because he doesn't want to go to sleep. He wants to stay in that state right before he goes to sleep. And so just as a couple of ideas on, is that helpful a little bit? So the alpha state is the state you want to get in when you want to learn data and information, right? So through breathing and such, and theta is the state you want to be when you're creating. So this is awesome. This exercise of what we're doing with chain linking and taking something, turning it into an image and attaching it to something else, an image, using the glue, that technique you use for so many different things. We'll give you more examples as we go on. Now, what I want to do is give you a third technique, and I call it the hook method. The hook method. So one of the reasons why we said that most people don't remember things is because it's not organized. How many people, you can't get work done unless your desk and your workspace is organized, right? Because sometimes your internal world reflects your outside world and vice versa. So that's a challenge for a lot of people. But what the hook method does, it allows you to organize information into a mental filing system, a mental file system that you have. So when you go into that folder or you go into that file, there's exactly what you want, right? Because you put it there. So for example, outside the door, you notice there was a coat rack with all these hooks. If you go, when you checked in here and you actually put your coat on the hook and you come in here and you learn speed reading, you learn memory, all that good stuff, and you leave and you want your jacket or your coat, where do you look? On the hook, because that's where you put the information to begin with. So the hook method it's an inside mental hook that you have, a system to be able to put the information you want to be able to remember. So I want you to, instead of me explaining it, I want to actually do it. So close your eyes. If you've ever seen me do this demonstration where in front of an audience, people will pass around a mic and they'll give me a truly random list of words. They'll say 17 is carpet, 12 is President Clinton, 6 is Mac laptop computer, and I memorized the words in and out of order. I'm going to show you exactly how I did that. Now, is that impressive for someone to be able to do? Get 20 words out of order and give it back to you forwards and backwards. Would that be a standout skill? Could you do that in front of friends or clients? I've had so many people, dozens of people come to me saying they got their job because they did that demonstration in an interview. Because that's like, wow, if somebody could do that, what else can they do, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a mental filing system, hooks, if you will, and I'm going to show you how to put random words on those. Because I start with words first, because a word is a building block to a foreign language, to a speech, to anything, right, to a to-do list. So I'm going to give you, you're the memory expert, I'm going to give you these words, and I'm going to say 7 is this, 1 is this, 10 is this, 5 is this, and when we're done, you're going to be able to give me all 10 words, forwards and backwards. Yeah, I would be like, my mouth would be like, really like that? That's how good it would be. So how many people are up for this? Yes or yes? How's your memory, everyone? All right, so here's what we're doing. The hooks that we're going to use, you already know, and that's the sun list. All right, so we're going to combine chain linking with your sun list. All right, so close your eyes. What's number 1? Number 2? Number 3? Traffic light. Good. Number 4? Number 5? 6? Soda. Good. 7? 8? 9? And 10? Toes. Good. Do it backwards. 10? How's your memory, everyone? Fantastic. So this exercise, and even if you don't get certain ones, it just comes with practice. Everybody takes to it in different ways. Trust me, the practice will lead to the progress, okay? So we do it. So remember, we're stretching ourselves. You give me permission to be able to push you, to get you to do new things. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to give you a list of 10 words, but I'm going to give it to you out of order. So I'm going to say something like 7 is jury, right? 7 is jury. So when I say 7, now this is a new list. You're the memory expert. You're on stage. You're like, hey, check this out. Give me 10 random words out of order. And 7 is jury. This is this, this, and this. And when you're done, we'll do it, okay? So close your eyes. 7 is jury. What you're going to do is take a picture of jury and associate it to your sun list 7, which is what? And make it using the glue. Action, exaggeration, make it funny, whatever you want to do. So what could you picture, for example? Jury sliding down a rainbow, people different colors of the rainbow in the jury box. What else? Everyone in the jury holding a balloon with all the different rainbow colors. What else? Jury finding a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. Wow. What else? A banner over the jury box of a rainbow. Now, what you want to do here in your practice of imagination, and it's going to give you your focus, going to help with the speed reading, everything, I want you just to pick one and picture it. But you can't say, oh, that sounds good, and just hear it. You have to picture it. Does everybody have one? And remember, if you're not sure what to use, pretend you're 5 years old again. What would a 5-year-old child do? Don't make it too logical. Make it stand out. This is an exercise in play. All right, now we're going to go to the next one. I'm going to jump around now. You guys ready? We're going to do this faster. You ready? Yes or yes? Number 3 is what? What's yours? I want you to picture, the word is quarter. Quarter, like a 25 cents quarter. What could you picture? Quick. What immediately, in a split second, could you picture? Go. 3 giant quarters in the traffic light. Good. What else? Different coins, quarter in the traffic light. Good. What else? Quarters dropping out of. Could you imagine leaving this hotel on your way to the airport or wherever you're headed, that you hit a traffic light and it's like the slot machine, quarters just pour out of the lights? Can you see that? Can you hear it? Can you see what kind of commotion it's creating? That's what we want to do. People are like, I don't want to fill my brain with all that stuff. The more you do, the more you can do. I could do this every single day, because the more I do, the stronger I get. And people are like, it's like going to the gym. You see somebody bench pressing like 300 pounds or whatever, like, wow, that person's really strong, so they could do that. No, that person does that. That's why they're very strong, right? So you're doing a little bit each day. So quarter, what else? Quarter traffic light. What else could you picture? Say it out loud. Quarters everywhere at the stoplight. Very good. What else? Quarters on the wheels of a car rolling through the traffic light. How many possibilities are there? That's awesome, right? Because if people have a problem, what do they usually have? One solution, right? So this is thinking literally out of the box. All right, so pick one, own it, lock it in. You guys ready? Number 4 is table. I want you to remember number 4 is search. I'm going to create harder words, a little bit more abstract. Search. It's not even an object. You should see when I do this demonstration, the words people give me. Search. What could you picture for search? What represents search? Google. Maybe a searchlight. A magnifying glass. Your hide and seek, playing hide and seek. Just remember the word is search. Sitting at the table, searching for a job. And just make it extraordinary so it's memorable, so it doesn't make it too logical, something that stands out for you. I like that. Doing the search puzzles. Just imagine the whole table is a search puzzle, or the whole table is a searchlight, or the whole table is like a Google. Imagine one of those, imagine a table that was like Google. Like, that would be cool. Just pick one. Ready? All right, we're going to go faster now because it takes more time to explain it. Number 1. Number 1 is, let's say, newspaper. Newspaper. What's your picture? Quick. The Daily Sun. Now make sure it's memorable too. Catches on fire. Imagine you're throwing newspapers into the sun. You have something? Does everybody have something? Remember, you have to see it. So even if you do Daily Sun, make it blow up. Because if it's too logical, when you go back to recall it, it won't be memorable enough. All right, number 2 is bear. Bear. It's a bear with really long arms, but it's bear. What could you picture? A bear in running shoes with really long arms. That's it, right? What color are the shoes? All right, whatever you got, that's your image, right? What was number 7? Wow. What was number 4? Wow. What was number 1? What was number 2? What was number 9? Wait, say that again? Wow. So you're going to the hook and you're like, there's nothing hanging on that hook. That's interesting. Number 9 is people. People. So what's your sun image? Cat. So what's your combo image? Cat people. I like cat people. How many people like cat people? So you can think about the Cats, the Broadway play. People petting cats. But don't make it too ordinary. You have to make it like thousands of people waiting in line to pet thousands of cats. Catwoman. How many people like Catwoman? All right, so pick one. All right, number 7 is, what do you mean? Oh, we already did it. Oh, cool. So you know the ones we did and the ones we didn't do. That's cool. Number 8 then is, did we do 8? How do you know? Interesting. Number 8, let's make it something different. Let's make 8 is punishment. What's your image? Quick. What is it? The octopus punishing you with his 8 tentacles. It's got whips, chains, everything, right? See, if it makes you laugh, aren't those the things that make you remember things? The things that don't make you laugh or doesn't make you smile, doesn't make you cringe, you're never going to remember those things. All right, which ones haven't we done? What was number 1? What was number 2? What was number 3? 4? Number 5? Okay, number 5 is Jeopardy. We're talking about Jeopardy music before. What's your image? Quick. The star on Jeopardy. Okay. What else? Jeopardy with the stars. Okay. Jeopardy's stars watching Jeopardy. Now, what's something like very visceral? If you think star, are you going to think Jeopardy automatically? What else could you picture? Like, what about an actual star, like a shooting star landing on the Jeopardy stage? And poor Alex Trebek. You see it? What else do you see? Other suggestions, good ones. Okay, stars all over the stage, Jeopardy, good. Does everybody have something? All right, which one didn't we do yet? 6 and 10? Number 10 is state. State. What could you picture? Quick. Tippy toes on the map. Your toes all over the map. Good. States. What else? State. United State of Toes? What do you picture for that? As long as you can picture it and don't just keep them words. What else? Toenails polish state flags. That's a good one. Do you see that? Do you guys see that? Painting your toenails? All right, fantastic. Last one. Number what? Which one are we missing? 6. 6 is speedy. Speedy. Sodas will speedily make you fat. What are you picturing? As long as you can see it. What else? Sugar Rush makes you sweet. You open it, speedy. You're not going to fit in your Speedo if you drink lots of soda. Does everyone see that? Can you imagine being pulled over for speeding and you're just like drinking lots of soda? It's pouring out of your car. Or you're driving a big soda for speeding. Speedy Gonzalez is drinking lots of sodas. All right, fantastic. All right, now open your eyes. You are the memory expert. I just gave you 10 literal random words, associate them to random numbers to be able to memorize. Most people wouldn't be able to memorize 3 of these, honestly. What was number 1? Newspaper. Number 2? Bear. Wow. I'm gonna do this and paste it. Number 3? Quarters. Go to number 4? Search. Go to number 5? Jeopardy. Go to 6? Very good. Number 7? Jury. 8? Punishment. Number 9? And number 10? State. Give yourselves a round of applause. Now, how would most people go about memorizing a list of words out of order? Like out of order, not even able to write it down. repetition, right? Now, that's one thing for 10. Imagine doing 20. Could we easily have gone into 11, 12, use skis, and use all the other things? Yes or yes? Fantastic. So that's the process of using the hook method. And so we went through it. You could check your work. Take out a piece of paper, actually do it. Just write down so you have it on you. 1 through 10. How many people would love to be able to memorize a speech without notes? A toast? Presentation you have to give at work? Lines to a play? You know, there's certain things that we know just through repetition, and all we need is a little bit of a tool to help remind us. Like if somebody's going to go up here and perform a play, and they forget their words, there's always somebody backstage that would just whisper. But do they whisper the whole line? What do they whisper? Just like one or two words to prompt the memory, and that's all you need is the prompt. I had a student come through our office, you know, is in Westchester here, and he came to me and he says he's phobic of public speaking, and I identify with that. You know, that's something that I just like, I get it, right? It's different than being nervous. You know, one thing to be nervous about it, you know, because I think we all get a little bit nervous getting in front of a group, but phobic is like, you know, can't perform. And he was like, you know, he has to give these talks, and he's a lawyer, and he got invited to speak at this this gathering, and he's afraid that he's going to forget what he needs to share. And that happens to all of us, right? Or what happens is you go to answer someone's question, and you go back and you forget what? You know, what you had to talk about, right? Where you were at that time. You lose your place. And so this technique of the hook method is also a great way of memorizing 10 or maybe even 20 points to a speech by getting that prompt, that little clue that reminds you of what it is, that key word. And I was like, okay, well, who's the audience? What are you going to talk about? And he's like, he wants to talk about the U.S. Constitution and talk to these children. And the kids are 6 years old. So I was like, wow, you're getting nervous in front of 6-year-olds. That's a tough crowd, which it really is. Like I get even more nervous in front of kids than adults. But I was like, okay, so do you know, what do you want to teach the kids? They were like, well, we'll start with the first 10 amendments of the U.S. Constitution, which is the what? The Bill of Rights, right? I was like, well, do you know the Bill of Rights? He was like, yes, I'm a lawyer. I passed the bar. Yeah, so what's the problem? He says, well, I get in front of these kids, I think I'm going to forget it. And that'd be really embarrassing for my son and his friends to see me forget the Bill of Rights. And I was like, okay, so no problem, let's do it. So I showed him the Sun List, which is really easy. How fast can you teach somebody the Sun List? How long would it take, honestly? 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes, and then they pretty much have most of it. And I recommend you all do that. So I taught him the Sun List because he had to do this the next morning. He was really nervous. And I was like, okay, get a key word out of each of the amendments to help remind you what that amendment is. And then go back to your Sun List and it will remind you, right? And so for the first one is freedom of the press, right? Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and we know that. So what could you picture for press? A newspaper. So I just had him throw this newspaper right into the sun. Just like that. How easy is that? How long does it take? Heartbeat, right? If you saw like George Bush run across the stage here in pink polka dot, you know, bunny outfit, would you ever forget that? How long would you have to stare at it to remember it? That's what you're doing in your imagination, right? So newspaper, boom. Number 2, what's the Second Amendment? Bearing arms, right? So I just think about like, what's the keyword? What's the prompt to remember them bearing arms? It's a bear, right? So I just took the bear, I put in my second place, which is what? On the Sun List. My shoes. Can you imagine a bear wearing red or white or different kind of running shoes? It's kind of crazy, right? Especially a bear with long arms. That would remind me of your right to bear arms. Number 3, what's the Third Amendment? It's freedom from quartering soldiers, right? That's a good freedom to have. You know, soldiers can't just like stay at your place and stuff like that if you don't want them to. Quarter. So I would think about quarter, and I would attach a quarter to my third spot on the Sun List, which is what? Traffic light. Could you picture? What could you picture there? And quarters coming out of traffic light. How many people could see a traffic light with quarters pouring out? Number Fourth Amendment, I'm going to keep on doing this until I get some kind of reaction. The Fourth Amendment is what? Search and seizure. So I just picture search. How can you relate search to number 4? I like that. A big search and rescue helicopter picking up the table, going in the air. You could be thinking about searching for a job at a table. You can think about having a Google table where you're searching on the Google table. You could think about playing hide and seek and someone's searching for you underneath the table. That's good, right? Number 5, I'm going to keep on going. Number 5, Fifth Amendment is what? Double jeopardy. How'd you know that? Did you look that up on Google? Did you search it like number 4? How many people knew it was double jeopardy was number 5? So how could you connect jeopardy to number 5? What's number 5 on your sun list? Can you connect star and jeopardy? Have we done that before? Have we done the previous 5 before? Are you sure? Number 6 is your right to a what? And number 7 is your right by a trial by what? Trial by what? By a jury of your peers, right? Number 8 is cruel, unusual what? Punishment. Oh, right. So you guys do know the actual Bill of Rights, right? Number 9 is people's rights retained. People's rights retained is number 9. Just remember, people to 9. Number 9 is what on your sun list? Cat people. That always reminds me of cat people. And number 10, did we talk about number 10? States, right? And powers to the states, right? Power to the states is number 10, and that's what will remind me of that. So basically, with this lawyer who have this phobic talk he had to do for these 6-year-olds, he needed to memorize the Bill of Rights, and we just used the sun list and did exactly what you did with the 1 through 10, all right? Do you guys see that? All right, give yourselves a round of applause. Those are your 1 through 10, and this is the hook method, and this is the practice, okay? Because we always go to practice. What you're practicing with this as you go forward, you're practicing, you want to know your sun list. You see how important the sun list becomes? It becomes a mental filing cabinet to store great information. You want to be able to practice chain linking. Have somebody give you a list of 5 or 10 words, and we'll do that later on, and then do your best to be able to memorize them, turn into a picture, and do stories, just like what you did. By the way, what happens after the neon sign? What do you have? What's the next element? Sodium. What's after that? Magnesium is after magnesium. What's after magnesium? What's after aluminum? How's your memory, everybody? All right, great. Stand up. I have to see this. Go like this, 1 out, 1 in. Okay, so check this out. Try a box. All right, so not a circle. Can you do a box? What's a box look like? It's just 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So watch my hands like this. 1, 2, you see this? 3, 4. You see like the box I'm making? You see how it's the opposite way? Is it easier? Wait, you have to go the opposite way. Notice they're crossing. Do this. Shake your hands out. All right. Put your hands together. Clasp them together. Actually, do this. Get a partner, real quick. Find a partner, person closest next to you. Just find a partner. Raise your hand if you don't have a partner. Partner, raise your hand. We have somebody back here. They've been looking for you their whole entire life. Right up front here. Okay. All right, so do this. Shake your hands out. Put one arm like this, where your palm is facing out. Put your other one where your palm is facing the other side out. Clasp them together. All your fingers together. Pull it up center. You see that, what you're creating here? Does everyone see that? Everybody has that, right? Now, just one of you let go. Just decide who's A and B. A let go. And what you're going to do is the person who let go, I want you to point to a finger, don't touch it. And I want that person to extend that finger. So just don't touch it. Just test them. Just keep on pointing to fingers to see if they could. All right, switch. Switch. So remember, both palms out. And then bring it center. Don't touch their finger. If you touch it, you give it away. All right, stop. Shake out your hands. What's after sun? What's after sun? Quick. After shoes? After traffic light? After table? What is number 18? What's number 15? What's number 20? Very good. After water bottle is what? After blimp is what? After batteries is what? After barrel is what? After board is what? After diamond is? After Knight Rider is? After ox is? Here, watch this. What's the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution on the Bill of Rights? Your right to a what? Right to bear arms. Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, we're going to take a real 7-minute break. When we come back, names and faces.